The envelope arrived on a rainy Tuesday, thick and yellowed like it had waited decades to be delivered. The return address was a place she didn't recognize, Greystone Manor Apartments, 118, Lorne Street, Wytheridge, Pennsylvania. Tucked inside was a rusted key, a brittle letter, and a single line in tight, spidery script. "It's yours now. I'm gone. Uncle Edmund." June blinked at the name. She'd heard it only once, whispered during a rare conversation with her estranged father. Edmund's cursed. Never talk about him again. She forgot the warning. 2 weeks later, with no job holding her back and no reason to stay in the city, she arrived in Wytheridge, a town smothered in fog and silence. The apartment complex stood like a forgotten tombstone, 3 stories high, dark brick, with windows like sunken eyes. The sign was missing letters. Greystone Manor. Inside, the lobby smelled of mold and old wood polish. The wallpaper peeled like sunburned skin. A cracked mirror hung behind the front desk, reflecting a staircase that sloped ever so slightly to the left. No one greeted her. No buzzer sounded. Only the stillness of air that hadn't moved in years. She climbed the stairs, the key cold in her pocket. 3C was at the end of a narrow hallway. The other doors were all closed, unmarked. Her footsteps barely echoed. She paused in front of the door, staring at the tarnished number plate. The key slipped in easily, like it had never left. The door groaned open, and a rush of cold, stale air greeted her. She stepped inside. The apartment looked untouched by time. Plastic still clung to some furniture. Thick velvet curtains blocked the light. On the far wall, a grandfather clock ticked faintly, though its hands didn't move. And then she noticed it, a soft, rhythmic tapping. From inside the walls. The tapping continued as June stood in the entranceway, trying to decide whether it was pipes, wind, or something else entirely. It came in uneven beats, not the hollow clink of old plumbing, but something softer, like knuckles. The sound stopped the moment she stepped forward. She flicked the light switch. Nothing. She fumbled for her phone, using its flashlight to explore the apartment's interior. The living room was tidy, almost staged. A dark green velvet couch faced a brick fireplace, its hearth empty but clean. A dusty television sat on a wooden stand, its screen cracked in the upper corner. Against the wall was a low bookshelf filled with faded novels and something that looked like an old ledger or diary, its leather cover warped from time and heat. June moved toward the kitchen, which was small but functional, yellow cabinets, a white tiled counter, and a battered Frigidaire refrigerator humming softly in the corner. When she opened it, the stale scent of expired milk greeted her, but otherwise it was empty. Still no sign of power. Back in the living room, she tried plugging her phone charger into a wall socket. Nothing. That's when she noticed the old rotary phone. It took 3 nights for her to find the key. It wasn't where it should have been, it was sewn into the lining of Edmund's old jacket in the closet, tucked in like a secret. June descended the basement stairs, flashlight trembling in her hand. The hallway below stretched longer than it should have, slanting at an impossible angle. At the far end stood the basement door. Heavy, iron-bound. A strange glyph was burned into the wood. When she unlocked it, cold air rushed past her like a fleeing animal. Inside, darkness deeper than night. Her flashlight flickered. Shapes moved along the stone walls, dragging shadows, hunched and wrong. Then she heard Holt's voice, but he wasn't saying words. He was screaming. She ran. On her return from the basement, June saw him. A man in a torn suit stood at the top of the stairs. His mouth was smooth flesh, no lips, no teeth, no sound. Just skin where words should be. He pointed at her chest. She stumbled back into the hallway, but he didn't follow. She blinked. He was gone. Later, she found deep scratches on her bedroom mirror, 4 straight lines, and then a smear of blood. Underneath, someone had written in ash. He waits for the door. The girl came in dreams now. June would find herself in the crawlspace, walls pulsing like muscle, breathless and cold. Agnes would sit cross-legged across from her, clutching the brass bell. "Why'd you ring it?" she'd whisper. "I didn't." "You will." June always woke with her sheets damp and the bell resting beside her head. Once, she tried throwing it into the furnace. It came back. This time, with a note pinned beneath it. That wasn't very nice. June taped shut every vent in the apartment. It didn't help. Voices still traveled through the ducts, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. Once, she heard a full conversation. Voice 1, "She's getting close." Voice 2, "She was always meant to." Voice 1, "She remembers." Voice 2. Then it begins again. June ripped the tape off and yelled into the vent, "What begins?" The voices went silent. Then, as though right beside her, Agnes' voice whispered. "The exchange." The door appeared on a Tuesday. It hadn't been there before, June was certain. Nestled between the hallway closet and the bathroom, where plain wallpaper had been just yesterday. Now, an old red door stood crooked in the frame, its wood splintered, paint peeling like dried blood. It was locked, of course. But that night, it creaked open on its own. Inside, the air shimmered, not with heat, but with a presence. The room beyond was small, windowless, and entirely red, red carpet, red wallpaper, red light bulbs swaying gently from the ceiling. In the center stood a chair. On the chair sat a man with a bag over his head. He didn't move. She backed away, but the door slammed shut behind her. The bulb swung faster. The man's head lifted slightly. He whispered without lips. "Trade with me." June screamed and kicked at the door until it let her go. When she turned back, the door was gone. Days passed without the red door's return, but something had changed. The air felt thicker. The walls more brittle. June stripped a section of wallpaper in the kitchen and found something underneath, not plaster, but a mural. Painted figures with elongated limbs and featureless faces stood shoulder to shoulder, arms raised toward a gaping black void in the sky. One figure stood apart, a girl in a green dress, her face detailed with eerie precision. It was Agnes. Her painted eyes followed June no matter where she stood. That night, June woke to the sound of dripping. A crack had formed across the mural's surface. From the black void, something red trickled out. The old TV in the living room had never worked, until now. At 3:07 a.m., it turned on by itself. Static. June approached, drawn by a hum that vibrated in her chest. Amid the fuzz, faces flickered. Holt. Agnes. Her uncle. Herself. Then, words. "Don't let them sing." A deep voice followed, low and melodic, crooning from somewhere behind the screen. She unplugged the TV. It kept playing. She smashed it with a chair. Silence. Then, from the hallway. That was my favorite part. He knocked on her door 3 times. June opened it, heart pounding, and there he was. Or, something that wore his skin. Holt's eyes were glassy, his mouth stitched shut with black wire. He held out his hand, palm up, revealing a piece of parchment burned at the edges. June took it. Written in blood. It's not about escape. It's about substitution. She looked up. He was gone. She heard his scream echo from the vent. June dreamt of falling. Down endless stairs. Past brick, bone, and blackness. When she awoke, the floorboards near the radiator were curled back, exposing something she'd never seen, a trapdoor. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Chains bound it, ancient and rusted. A lock glowed faintly blue. June touched it. Her breath left her body. For 10 full seconds, she saw nothing, heard nothing, but felt everything. Thousands of voices screaming from the other side. When her vision returned, a phrase was carved into her arm, fresh and bleeding. One must stay. June began hearing footsteps in her apartment when she wasn't moving. Slow, methodical. Not pacing, waiting. She began marking the floor with flour. One night, she saw the prints, bare feet, small like a child's, but twisted sideways. They circled the couch where she slept. Desperate for answers, she returned to the building's archive and found a faded blueprint of Greystone Manor. It was older than the building's current form. Rooms were marked that didn't exist anymore. One of them, Parlor of Repose, Floor 3, North Wing. June followed the blueprint's clues until she found it, behind a panel near her closet. A hidden room. Inside were 8 wax figures, seated in a circle. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothing, all mid-gesture, frozen mid-sentence. Their faces looked real, too real. One of them wore her uncle's jacket. The plaque beneath read, "The ones who refused." June heard the singing again. Soft. Sweet. A lullaby. She followed it to the kitchen where the mural had been. It was gone, painted over in white. A child's handprint was smeared on the wall. She turned and found Agnes sitting at the kitchen table. "You took too long," the girl said. "I didn't know." Agnes tilted her head. "It knows now. What you are. I don't understand." "You will. When the clock stops." June looked to the grandfather clock. Its hands were spinning. Agnes vanished. The grandfather clock, long silent, now ticked erratically. June pried open the back panel. Inside was a note wedged between the gears. "Every 12th hour resets the loop. When it breaks, so do we." Underneath the note, carved into the wood, "Find the mirror room." She returned to the blueprint. There it was, an unlabeled chamber above the 3rd floor. No staircase led to it. But that night, a ladder appeared in the hallway. Rusted. Ancient. She climbed. The chamber above the 3rd floor was pitch black. Until she stepped inside. Then every surface reflected light, 100 mirrors, all different shapes and sizes. Some hung, some floated midair. Each one showed a version of her. Some were crying. Others were injured. One was smiling, but its eyes were black voids. A voice echoed. "Pick one. Stay in it." June backed out. The ladder vanished behind her. The mirrors kept reflecting her from beyond the door, even after it closed. The next morning, someone knocked at 3C. June opened the door slowly. She was looking at herself. Identical. Same hair, same clothes, same fearful eyes. The other June smiled, too wide. "I'm the one that agreed." Then she stepped forward. June slammed the door and pushed the bookshelf in front of it. The doorknob rattled for an hour straight. Eventually it stopped. Later, in the mirror, she saw the other June standing behind her. June awoke to darkness. Not night, something deeper. The apartment lights no longer worked. Her phone wouldn't turn on. The windows showed nothing but pitch. She wandered blindly with a candle Holt had left behind. The flame flickered blue. Hours passed. No sunrise. She saw Agnes again. Not in the hallway. In the mirror. "Time's broken," Agnes whispered. It stopped ticking. June checked the grandfather clock. The hands had melted. The red door appeared again, this time wide open. Inside, the man with no lips. He pointed again. June stepped back. He vanished. They came at midnight. 3 figures stood outside her door, two tall, one child-sized. They wore masks, porcelain, cracked, and weeping. They didn't knock. Instead, they slid paper under the door. A page torn from her journal, one she never wrote. It read. She let them in. June didn't sleep. She wedged a chair under the handle. In the morning, the masks were laid neatly at her bedside. Her journal was blank. Exploring again, June noticed the stairwell extended further than before. Each step upward made her dizzier. At the 15th floor, a level that should not exist, she found only a small door labeled Witness Room. Inside, a row of empty chairs. In the center, a child's tricycle spun on its own. The walls flickered with images of her, brushing her teeth, sleeping, weeping, screaming. She was being watched. Above the final image, words bled onto the wall. We chose well. The air in 3C grew thinner. Every breath June took came with resistance, like she was drowning in nothing. Cracks formed in the walls, narrow at first, then gaping. From inside, things reached out. Arms made of fog. Fingers that hissed when they touched light. She poured salt around her bed. Lit every candle she could find. But at 3:03 a.m., the breach opened fully. June saw herself, dozens of times, writhing, twisting, screaming in the void. Then silence. Then, a whisper. Trade complete. She awoke on the ceiling. Not metaphorically, her body was there, above her, eyes wide, mouth slack. Below, another version of her sat calmly drinking coffee. That June looked up and smiled. "You're lighter than I thought." June screamed but no sound came. Her limbs wouldn't move. The false June leaned forward and whispered. "Don't worry. You'll sink back down soon. We all do." Then she laughed. And somewhere below, the door creaked open. June began fading. Her breath fogged less each day. Her footsteps no longer made sound. Mirrors stopped reflecting her entirely. She tried to call her mother, the landline rang, but the voice on the other end said only, "The wake has already happened. We buried you last week." She dropped the phone. In the hallway, Agnes stood with a candle and said, "You're almost ready. Soon you'll hear what they hear." "What do they hear?" June asked. Agnes's eyes rolled back. The before. June opened a closet and found stairs descending. She took them. The light dimmed with each step until it became thick like water. Her candle barely glowed. At the bottom, a corridor stretched endlessly. Paintings lined the walls, each showed 3C in various states of decay and distortion. At the end stood a door made of bone. It opened inward. She found herself back in her apartment, but it was reversed. Left was right. Her belongings mirrored. A note on the fridge. "Don't stay long. It likes you here." Agnes appeared again, but she was no longer a girl. She stood tall, with limbs too long, mouth split open vertically, eyes black void spinning like galaxies. "Do you see me now?" she asked. June nodded slowly. Agnes stepped forward and whispered, "Then you must choose, stay in your skin, or wear mine." June blinked. She was alone. But her hands were smaller. Her voice was not hers. The mirror in the hallway cracked. Inside, June saw herself packing, leaving 3C. But as she stepped into the hallway, dozens of hands dragged her back inside. The reflection screamed. The real June watched. Then she realized the date on the calendar reflected in the mirror. Tomorrow. The future was set. She turned on the faucet. Water didn't come out, fingers did. Pale, writhing, clawing. They grabbed at her wrists, pulling her toward the basin. Screaming, she smashed the porcelain. The hands dissolved into ash. In the drain, someone had etched. "It knows what you taste like now." The walls started whispering again. Not just murmurs, her name. Over and over. From behind the plaster, inside the vents, beneath the floor. June. 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 She plugged her ears, but it didn't stop. The sound came from inside her now. A note appeared on her bathroom mirror, written in condensation. "Answer us." She screamed, but no sound escaped her throat. The silence answered back. "Good girl." She found another brass bell in the freezer. This one was cracked. Cold to the touch. When she picked it up, her vision fractured. She saw hundreds of versions of herself, screaming, burning, buried, smiling with someone else's mouth. Then the bell rang. Once. The apartment shook. Walls bled. The air sang in a voice that wasn't made of sound. She dropped the bell. It rolled under the fridge and vanished. That night, someone knocked on her window, from the 4th floor. The candle Holt gave her finally burned to its end. Inside the melted wax, she found a key, jagged and warm. Agnes appeared again. "You can use it," she said. "But it only turns once." "What does it open?" Agnes smiled. "Your way out. Or someone else's way in." June clutched the key all night, unable to sleep. By morning, the doorknob to the trapdoor pulsed. Waiting. She used the key. The lock screamed as it turned, the sound thick like bone grinding. Inside, a spiral staircase plunged downward. Each step was coated in soot. At the bottom, a chamber lined with hundreds of human teeth, embedded in the stone walls like trophies. In the center, a pool of mirror-black water. Her reflection blinked independently. "Trade," it whispered. "You go. I stay." June stepped forward. She dipped her hand into the pool. It seized her. Her vision flashed, the red room. Holt screaming. Agnes's true form. The hands. The mirrors. And then, her own corpse, lying peacefully in her bed. She tried to scream. Her mouth was gone. Then darkness. When she awoke, she was in 3C. Clean. Bright. Normal. Someone knocked at the door. 3 times. She opened it. Standing there was a woman, wide-eyed and nervous, holding a suitcase. "I'm June Mallory," she said. "My uncle left me this place." The real June tried to speak, to warn her. But no sound came. Her mouth smiled on its own.